Intention behind karma. Another important factor behind action to determine karma is intention behind the action. Thoughts and intentions are different. However bad be our intentions, as long as the intentions are not converted into any type of plan or action, it doesn't amount to karma. Whatever are the results of our action, as long as the intention was good, the karma was right, and similarly with bad intention, the karma would be wrong. To repeat, intention alone would not decide karma. Intention followed by a plan or an action would decide karma. Illustration: I intend to cause harm to a person. But I did not plan any harm, much less did any harm. That didn't amount to any wrong karma. Today I hire a person to cause harm to my enemy, now that's a wrong karma. It's immaterial what the hired person will do, but my hiring him to carry out my bad intention itself is an act for me, which is wrong karma. If an action is carried with good intention, then even if the action results into something bad, it's still a right karma. Illustration: a man's wife had become paralytic after hearing some shocking news many years back. She had to use wheelchair as she couldn't walk anymore due to that paralytic attack. The man consulted a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist suggested emotional shock therapy for his wife. They planned a fake housebreaking during a time when the wife would be alone. They thought, out of fear, the lady might jump out of her wheelchair and run for life. One shock had made her paralytic, another shock might cure her. The plan was carried out. However, seeing the disguised intruder, the lady got a major heart attack, and she died. The intention of the husband and the psychiatrist was very good. However, the action resulted into something unwanted. The husband, psychiatrist, and the man in disguise didn't do any wrong karma. If an action is carried out with bad intention, then even if the action results into something good, it's still a wrong karma. Illustration: let's change the above story. A husband had a paralytic wife, who couldn't walk and used wheelchair for many years now. The husband wanted to get rid of his wife, so he hired a contract killer. One day when the lady was alone at home, the contract killer enters the house and attacks the lady. The lady panicked and jumped out of the wheelchair and ran for her life. She escaped successfully, and then realized that now her legs were fine. The intention of the husband and the contract killer was bad, though the action resulted into something very good. Still, the husband and the contract killer's actions are wrong karma. To summarize the above: take necessary action when action is needed. Wrong action will cause wrong karma. And even not taking any action when action is required is wrong karma. Intention behind our karma is very important. Intention alone doesn't amount to karma. Intention followed by action amounts to karma. If an action is carried out with good intention, then even if the action results into something bad, it's still a right karma. If an action is carried out with bad intention, then even if the action results into something good, it's still a wrong karma.
If an action is carried out with good intention, then even if the action results into something bad, it's still a right karma. If an action is carried out with bad intention, then even if the action results into something good, it's still a wrong karma. Summary: be yourself.
Animals will live like animals, aquatics will live like aquatics, and so on. Similarly, without higher knowledge, human beings will live like human beings are born, survive, reproduce, fight, and die. Human life will not be significantly different than animals. To find permanent happiness, knowledge of the divine origin is a must. The Creator has made human beings with features such as special intelligence to differentiate between right and wrong, and has bound human beings with law of karma. With that, a human being can find its way back to the origin, and merge into the ultimate. Thus, putting an end to the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, one can liberate oneself. The moment a person learns this secret and starts living the remaining life of this birth knowing oneself to be one with the divine, life will be permanently happy. God is not somebody. So, there is no question of whether God exists or doesn't. Hence, there are no atheists or agnostics in this world. God is an energy that always existed, and everybody and everything is made of the same energy. With that knowledge, if still anybody says, God doesn't exist, then that amounts to saying, I don't exist, which makes no sense. Since you are the same energy as God, you cannot be unhappy. Entire emphasis of this chapter was on karma theory.
Main reason of a person's unhappiness is that he believes that somebody else is responsible for his problems. That happens just because he is ignorant of karma theory. Every person is completely responsible for whatever happens in his life.
Not a blade of grass moves without God's will, because grass is not bound by karma. Not just grass or plants, no species except human beings are bound by karma. Human beings have free will, and they can do anything and everything without God's will. That is extremely important to understand. Prima facie, somebody else or nature might seem to be the cause of his unhappiness, but in reality that somebody or nature is just instrumental in the process. His karma is the real cause of everything that happens in his life. If you truly understand the karma theory, you will not blame anybody, nature, or God for your miseries. You will ensure that going forward, you do just right karma, so that only good things happen in your life. When your prarabdha is over, and you do no more wrong karma, only good things will happen in your life. You will not have any problems with anybody or nature. Life will be just smooth and peaceful. Gold, diamond, or any precious stone doesn't lose even iota of its value if it falls in manure, or even stays there for a long time. Similarly, a person who is on the right path doesn't have anything to lose, even if people talk wrong things about him. Sad happenings like people talking bad things about a person occur due to latter's prarabdha. The person should just let go, and get done with his prarabdha, and not create any further wrong karma by negatively reacting to people's trying to defame him. It should be your constant endeavor to keep reminding yourself of your true nature, which is divine, pure, untainted, and blissful.
Be yourself the practice.
Before you proceed to the next chapter, let's summarize. In the beginning there was nothing but energy. We call that God. That energy manifested into a universe or universes and everything in that. So, you too are the same energy that is considered as God. Unmanifested portion of energy is called God, and manifested energy is called by different names, and known in different forms. You are one of the manifested names and forms of God. Your spiritual journey began when you, as an individual soul, were separated from God, the Supreme Soul. Ever since then you are going through the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth of 8.4 million spices, now as a human being. As a human being your thoughts, words, and deeds are governed by the law of karma. Your right karma results in good fruits, and your wrong karma produces bad fruits. The day you fully understand the law of karma, you will stop generating any further wrong karma. After a while your prarabdha will zero out, and you will become a living liberated soul. The life in which you become living liberated is practically your last life as an ordinary human being. After that you either choose not to return to the world as an ordinary human being, or you come back as spiritually accomplished person, to help others attain liberation.
No one is in charge of your happiness. except you.
Now you have the knowledge of your true self. With that knowledge you will view others and circumstances in a different way than before. Now you know that you are not just a body or mind or intellect. You are a soul, which is potentially divine. You alone are completely in charge of your happiness. Never give control of your happiness to anybody. From this point onwards, use your free will and willpower to keep the charge of your happiness with yourself. I repeat, do not give that charge of your happiness to anybody. Depending on who you physically are, and what your status is, you might be dependent on somebody for your material needs. But, you should never be dependent on others for your happiness. This is something most people do not understand. But, now that you have learned about your true nature, do not live one more day with your pseudo-nature. Have faith in what Vedanta says, your true nature is divine. In the beginning there was just the energy, which we call as the universal soul, Paramatman. You were separated as an individual soul, Jivatman, to go through number of lives, finally experience self-realization, and return to the universal soul, and merge into that. At no point you lose your true divine nature that you were before separating from the universal soul. However, in the process of continuous cycles of birth, death, rebirth, you accumulated a lot of samskaras, mental impressions, which made you forget your true nature, like the sheep lion in the narrated story. Having acquired this invaluable wisdom, make this very moment your turning point, and enjoy the rest of your life as a Jivanmukta, living liberated. In your day-to-day life, don't take anything personally, because now with the knowledge of your real nature, you are one notch up. Anything that used to hurt you until now, going forward you got to tell yourself, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Remember Buddha's teaching: if a guest of yours brought a gift for you, and if you didn't accept that, would he not have to take it back with him? Similarly, if anybody said anything to you, if you don't accept, then the other person will have to take it back, and keep it for himself. Your real nature is the nature of the highest power that you believe in. For most of us that's God. With that kind of nature there is no room for ego. In the absence of ego, there's nothing to be hurt for. Thus, your happiness is a sure thing, and no external factor can disturb that. He is happy who thinks he is happy. Before bedtime, revisit, be yourself. Just before retiring for the day, spend 5 minutes just with yourself. Ask yourself if you lived as yourself throughout the day. If you lived your real nature the entire day, you must have felt happy the whole time. If you felt unhappy any time in the last 24 hours, then make an affirmation that the same will not repeat in the next 24 hours. Take away from yourself the option of choosing between living your pseudo-nature and living your real nature. Just live your original divine pure real nature. Have faith in this book. Read it as many times needed until you find out that you have started living your true divine nature, full of happiness. Be yourself, and be happy. Balance your life. Be a married monk.
Chapter 4. Be simple.
Live simply, so that others may simply live. And Mahatma Gandhi. Are you still thinking about the logic behind the name of the book? Somehow the two words, married and monk, don't go together. One problem most people have is that we make a very rigid picture and definition of terms. If somebody says, spiritual guru, we start imagining a bald person, or a person with long hair and beard, wearing a plain white, or ochre color robe, and so on. So much so that there are many people who cannot believe that a person could be a spiritual guru if he didn't know Sanskrit. Similarly, many people just cannot imagine how a monk could be a married person. To them I wish to ask why not? Why can't we think of a monk who is very spiritual not just because he is not married but he is spiritual because he is so? As you go reading further I would try to clarify as many as such assumptions, or even beliefs you have made about terms monk, guru, yogi, and so on. Many people think that a yogi cannot have any material possessions. This is definitely not something that came during my studying the lives of great yogis. Who's a yogi? Anyone who practices any yoga is a yogi, and that yoga could be Kaya, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raj Yoga, or any other yoga. A Jnani, pronounced Jnani, meaning person highly knowledgeable about spirituality, need not be a poor or simple living person, nor does he need to have all the scriptures memorized. Story: King Janaka, the knower of God. King Janaka was a great king at the same time, a very great yogi too. He was a yogi by Jnana, knowledge of God. He was called as the knower of God, Brahman Jnani. Gurus used to send their students to King Janaka to acquire the knowledge of God, Brahman Jnana. One such student was sent to King Janaka. The student was very eager to know how a king can teach somebody about spirituality, when he, the king, himself was enjoying the best of materialism. On his arrival at the king's palace, the king ordered his men to take proper care of the guest, student. The king asked the student to spend as much time as possible with him, the king. The student started having meals with the king. They both went together to pond for bath daily. The student sat with the king to enjoy music and dance at the palace, and so on. They asked, but the king didn't teach one single word to the student. One day when the king and the student were having bath in a pond, little away from King Palace, one of king's men came running and shouted, "King, your palace is completely on fire." Even before the messenger fish statement, the student jumped out of the pond and ran towards the place in one breath. King Janaka had no reaction to the news, and kept taking dip in the beautiful pond. After a while the student returned to the pond. The king coolly asked him, "My palace is on fire. What made you run as a tiger or after your life?" The student replied, "Sir, I had put my wet loincloth for drying in the palace this morning. I went to save it from the fire." The king didn't say a word but continued with his bath. That day the student learned the first lesson of Jnana from the king, the lesson of attachment. People don't bring anything to the world at the time of their physical birth, and they can't take anything from here at the time of death. Nobody can take away from us what we deserve, and we cannot retain anything that we don't deserve. When something has to come to us, it would come and it would be gone when it shouldn't be with us anymore. Our attachment towards anything cannot retain it for even a moment longer than the time it should be with us. In spirituality, it doesn't matter what a person possesses. What matters is his attachment towards his possession. King Janaka had a huge beautiful palace with all its riches in it. But he did not have any attachment towards that palace, or no palace. He knew that he was blissful. A Jnani is not attached to his possession. If a king were a Jnani, then even if he became the poorest person the next day, his peace of mind would still remain the same, because though he was a king, he was never attached to his kinghood, as was the case with King Janaka in the above story. Whereas, the student was attached to his little possession, and his mind was completely disturbed on hearing the news. Lesser the attachment towards things and relations, lesser would be the pain of losing them. Yogis, thousands of years back, did introspection to find out answers to several questions related to human lives. In one such case, they observed that poor people were not happy, and at the same time rich people like kings were not happy either. So, they, yogis, realized that wealth is not the cause of happiness. So if lack of wealth is not the main cause of sorrow, then what is? After a lot of thinking, they came to the conclusion that attachment was one of the main causes of sorrow. A poor man with hardly any property would have worries of how to become wealthy, and a rich man will have worries of losing what he has, and also worries of how to acquire more. The only person who would not be worried is the one who has no attachment towards his possession, whether he has plenty of possession, or scanty. That's what the story is trying to convey. Well, hopefully by now you know that it's not necessary that a yogi, jnani, or monk should not have any material possession, but what is important is that they do not have any attachment towards their material possessions. There is no end to wants and desires. There is nothing wrong is wishing for more, but craving for that more causes unhappiness. When will the craving subside?
Swami Vivekananda had said, "We are ever free if we would believe it, only have faith enough. You are the soul, free and eternal, ever free, ever blessed. Have faith enough, and you will be free in a minute. Everything in time, space, and causation is bound. The soul is beyond all time, all space, and all causation. That which is bound is nature, not the soul." During spiritual studies often question arises in a seeker's mind, when will I be liberated? When will I gain self-realization? When will I desire no more? Etc. And the answers to all questions lie in the above quote of Swami Vivekananda, "At this very moment, needing and wanting are very different than desiring or craving. Food, clothing, and shelter are basic needs of any person to survive in a human society. Basic education, medical care, employment, etc. are wants to live in the society. Having ambition to go beyond these needs and wants and working towards it is nothing wrong for a person if that's done casually. But desiring or craving for anything beyond basic needs and wants doesn't suit a seeker. For everything in life there are two paths: A. Take it as it comes, and B. Get it somehow. In both the cases karma, action, is involved, but the first one is not the result of craving, the second one is. Craving will subside when we realize the fact, success is not what we have, success is what we don't want. Success is not what we have, success is what we don't want. Once the basic needs and wants, family income to take care of basic food, clothes, shelter, education, medicines, etc. are taken care of, one should stop running after more. There's no harm in changing job or house and moving on to another, but one should avoid spending spare time in making additional income, rather use that time in experiencing self-knowledge. However much a person may possess, still the craving will not stop. Craving will stop only when the person experiences self-knowledge and knows that I don't want anymore. Even after knowing that, there's absolutely nothing wrong if more comes to him, but he shouldn't struggle to acquire that more. Spending quality time every day on spiritual reading or listening and practicing spirituality, meditation, less talking, not participating in any argument with anybody, a person would soon experience self-knowledge, and his craving will stop instantly.
Joy of living a simple life. There is tremendous joy in living a simple life. People are meant to be loved, and possessions are meant to be used. But, when a person starts loving possessions and using people, he loses his happiness.
People are meant to be loved, and possessions are meant to be used. But, when a person starts loving possessions and using people, he loses his happiness.
The purpose of a car is to take you comfortably from one point to another. A high-end car will serve no significantly different purpose. But, it will definitely add to your tension from various angles, same with the possession and usage of any luxury item.
Your life will become really simple when you stop using too much logic in everything, and start accepting everything by pinch of salt. Vedanta says, Brahman Satya Jagad Mithya, Almighty is real and world is unreal. That means everything is unreal. Yet, most people fight on anything and everything, mostly trying to convince one's own knowledge is right, and others wrong. Here are the understanding from Vedanta about various terms and concepts. If you accept it, you will be able to stay away from unnecessary debates and live a simple life. What is God?
God is just another word for the consciousness that always existed, and will always exist. Many people tried to find God and thus got curious about, where is God? If God is within each person, as well as all other beings, why is God so difficult to find? Shouldn't that be easy? Let's not take God as a person, or an object that we can find it. God is a concept that we need to understand. That means we don't have to find God. We need to understand God.
Let's not take God as a person, or an object that we can find it. God is a concept that we need to understand. That means we don't have to find God. We need to understand God.
We can't talk of God in terms of its size. Is God so small that it can be inside us? Or is God so big that the entire universe is inside it? Neither is important. Neither God has to be inside us nor have we to be inside God, because everything is manifestation of God. It's like asking whether wood is involved in wooden chair, or whether wooden chair is evolved out of the wood. Actually both, wood and wooden chair are same substance in different names and forms, Namarupa. Similarly, God and everything else are same with just different names and forms. Everything is just manifestation of God, and hence God need not be searched for. The concept called God needs to be understood.
God is the energy that always existed. God then transformed into all the forms that we call universe, planets, trees, animals, humans, etc. That means we humans are also one of the forms of God.
However, in layman's language we can use the term finding God. Finding God has 3 steps: A. Understanding God, B. Feeling presence of God, and C. Getting vision of God. Understanding of God requires studying scriptures and practicing spirituality. The test of this understanding is in-depth theory of spirituality, i.e. desire, ego, and fear. Anybody who got rid of desire, ego, and fear has really understood God. Feeling presence of God. Having understood God, a person has constant feeling of presence of God. His every thought and action is guided by that presence. Getting vision of God. Eyes cannot see God. Mind sees it. When 2 people see an object with their eyes, they would describe it similarly. But when 2 people see something in their minds, the description would be totally different. Anything that mind very deeply thinks about, mind starts visualizing it, experiencing it. Be it an object, person, ghost, God, or anything. A psychiatrist might call it hallucination. In spirituality it could be called as getting vision, and in general it could be considered as daydreaming, etc. That's all about, so-called, finding God. If one understands the concept of God, then one would never try to find it, because we can't find something that we ourselves are. One can travel from point A to point B. Where's the question of traveling from point A to point A? With the help of scriptures and meditation, get freed from desire, ego, and fear. That would lead to feeling the presence of God at all times. That would result in getting vision of the form, God in a specific form, that your mind wishes.